It says we're live.
It does say we're live.
Are you seeing my screen, Robin?
I do.
Yay!
And I don't see us at all, which is nice.
It is. I kind of want to be incognito right now. So
We do have a few folks joining us. So if you are there, if you could let us know that you can hear us and see the screen just by typing something in the chat box that says, I hear you, or tell us where you're from. But most important is that you can hear us and see the screen.
yeah, we have.
All right, Paula says hi, Guru, so that's good. That's a good sign.
Whew.
We have lots of other people joining us, so welcome everybody. Paula said she can hear and see the screen, so that's very good.
Oh man, we're living right today, Robin.
Exactly. Jennifer says loud and clear, so that's also good.
Yeah.
Diane's here from Kansas. Great. We have about 2 minutes and we will get started. Bob says he can hear from Pittsburgh, and Tanya's here from Alberta. So Gina says she can hear us. So great. I think we're doing good, which is awesome. We're excited to be talking about profitable pricing, and it's a good timing because I know things are opening up and people want to make sure they're getting what they're charging, what they're worth.
Absolutely. It's time to make back some revenue. So I am excited we had this planned.
Barbara said it was just snowing in Minnesota. It looks like we might get snow later today in Colorado. Joe is here from New Zealand. So welcome, Joe. I have no idea what time it is in New Zealand right now, but
one thing I can tell you is it's not going to snow in Houston today. We are having a little rain. My garden and landscape did not appreciate the snow we had earlier in the year.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, I kind of have a clean slate. That's what happens when you have a tropical landscape and it snows. So, almost time to get started. So, one last drink of water here.
If you guys have questions while Susan is doing the presentation, I'm going to be monitoring the chat box. So if you have questions as we get started, go ahead and just type them in the chat box, and I will either ask them during the session or we'll hold questions till the end. But we will have time for some questions at the end as well. So just let us know if you have any questions like that. You can type them just anywhere in the chat box, and I'll try to keep track of that.
Yeah, and I'm happy for to pause and answer questions. Some of the content does kind of build, so if you're confused by something earlier, we can clear it up. Robin has no qualms about interrupting me, so it's not like you are, and I don't mind at all because this is such a passionate topic for both Robin and I. We really want you to understand this and be able to apply it to your business when we finish. So are we good to get started, Robin?
I think so. Yep. I think go ahead and get started.
Okay. So today we are going to talk about profitable pricing. Are you charging what you're worth? And unfortunately, I do find in pet care services, we do a lot of talking in trade shows and with our members and our community about how to ensure you're pricing right and that you are charging what you're worth. Because overall in our industry, I think we tend to undervalue the services we provide. So hopefully by the time we finish today, you will be, you'll walk away with confidence to really look at your pricing and make sure you're maximizing the revenue and what you can get from it. I am Susan Briggs, and I just want to share a little bit about why I like to present on this. And it kind of goes back to what I did before the pet industry. Some of you know that my background is in accounting. I have actually a master's in accounting, so that's about as geeky as you can get. And I did sit and pass the CPA exam coming out of college, and then worked in corporate world for a while, opened my own pet business with partners, which wasn't Robin, in Houston, Texas, back in the late 90s, and operated that. And then when I sold it in 2012 and was kind of thinking about what could I do in the pet industry, it really struck me that I had an opportunity to combine the education and background that I had in accounting with my experience as a pet care business owner, because I knew that people often struggled with their finances, and it was something I had a passion about, being able to help other business owners better understand their finances. And a big part of that is pricing. So before we get started today, I just want you guys to respond in chat. How satisfied are you with your pay? Are you extremely, maybe somewhat, not at all? Because this is a really important thing for everyone to really assess, I think, on an annual basis, because if you're not satisfied with your pay, you do have control of changing that. And again, we hope you have confidence from that. So what are you seeing in the chat, Robin, about this?
We have somewhat mentioned several times. We have a yes, and we have a lot, not at all. Somewhat satisfied, not satisfied, somewhat. One person's opening in May, so.
Okay.
But we do have, we do have a few not at all. We have a pathetic. We have somewhat in some services, not satisfied for others, which is a great insight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, kind of mostly there's nobody that's like absolutely 100% love what I'm paying myself. So.
All right. Well, then I'm excited we're doing this, because our goal with this session today is to help you find money. And we're going to talk about ways that when you price your services right, the beauty of that is it's an easy way to increase your own pay. And if you're happy with your pay, you can use that money to maybe increase the pay of your team, because we do know finding great team members can be a challenge right now. So the whole goal of our session today is to help you find money. And the first place we're going to start is talking about knowing your hourly rate. And this goes back to what you're paying yourself. And there's different ways you can decide how much you as the business owner should get paid. You could look at your current pay, but we already know from our little mini poll that some of you are not happy about that. In fact, some of you think it's a pathetic amount. And we then think that means something in your business needs to change. You could also look at the cost to replace you. And I kind of like this one, because if you guys really stop and think about, man, how much would I have to pay somebody to do everything I'm doing? How many of you think that you'd probably have to replace yourself with more than one person? Because my guess is that you're doing and wearing many different hats, and that you wouldn't be able to find one person to do everything you do, and probably not at the pay you pay yourself. So that's kind of universal. Again, we hear this a lot when we talk about this topic. We have in the past done financial surveys in the industry, and we have asked about what is your owner compensation. The last results we had for that was from the 2017 survey. The median was under $58,000, which I think is too low. If you think about how hard you work, the stress you have of being a business owner, the responsibility for not only the pets in your care, but your team and the jobs that you're having in your community, let alone the responsibility of taking care of the pets and the clients, you need to be paying yourself more than $58,000 a year. For us, $75,000 to $100,000 is a reasonable goal, which means you should be making $36 to $48 an hour. And in fact, the Dog Guru is one of the kind of beliefs and stakes that we put in the ground that we kind of get on our soapbox about, is that as a pet business owner, you should really be looking to get a six-figure salary, which is that $48 an hour. So would that make you guys happy with your pay? Hopefully it would, but the key is to know your value of the services that you're providing. And caring for pets, which is like caring for a family member, is very valued by your client base. And so we're going to help and talk about how you can then translate that into your pricing. So there are 3 different ways to determine the pricing on your services. And I would recommend that you kind of use each one of these as an input before you decide where to set your pricing. And the first one is probably what most of you have done, is set your prices based on what the competitors in your area are charging. And that's how a lot of us selected pricing as we started our businesses. So someone earlier said they're opening in May. You've probably done a competitive analysis in your marketplace and have an idea of what your pricing is going to be. The second way of looking at pricing is based on what you think someone will pay. So that's that value that you're providing to your client. And then the third input, I like to think of this as, is based on the cost of providing that service plus a profit. So we're going to go into each one of these a little more in depth over the next few minutes in this webinar. So we'll start with talking about setting your prices based on your competitors. There's a few questions and issues when that is the method you use for setting pricing. Number one, do you even know if they're profitable? And you probably don't, because most of them are private companies, and we don't broadcast out whether we're making money or not. Just because someone's in business does not mean they're making money and profitable. The second thing is, are your services really compatible? Are you comparing apples to apples, or are you comparing apples to oranges? And I know that when we talk to a lot of our followers in our community, they'll offhand say, well, we do a lot more with the dogs in our care during the day for daycare. We invest money in training our staff. We go to conferences. We stay abreast of what's going on in the industry. We do ongoing education, and our competitors don't do that. Well, then you're no longer comparing apples to apples. So your pricing shouldn't necessarily be the same. And then the third is, do they provide the same value to the clients? And I know a lot of our followers, pre-pandemic had wait lists and was actually dealing with more volume than they can handle. So when you solely price based on the competition in your market, you're not really ensuring that they are profitable, or they may not even know whether they are or not. You may not be comparing your services apples to apples, and you may very much be undervaluing the service that you provide and that perceived value in the marketplace. So value pricing is pricing based on what you think someone will pay. And 20% of your clients will always pay more than your baseline. And I think it's really important that you don't put a cap on what someone is willing to pay you in the care of their pet. The other thing is, we hear a lot when we talk with members of our community about raising rates, is they're like, my clients won't pay that. Well, how do you know until you put it out there and ask? We make a lot of assumptions about the personal financial decisions that a client will make without any facts or basis to back that up. It's, everybody needs to, in the business, make sure you're priced to where you can be profitable and sustainable and there for your clients long term. And then you have to let your clients determine how they will fit that into their budget. And I can tell you, if they trust you for the care of the pet, your paying for your services is going to be a high priority for them, and they will budget it for their vacation as part of their vacations, or they will budget for daycare or grooming or bathing. So really caution you against making assumptions that people won't pay more, because we know they will. And we'll talk a lot about that throughout this webinar today. And then the third input is knowing your cost to provide a service and then adding in a profit. And this is the only pricing method that's going to ensure that you're going to be profitable. And in the outcome of that is being able to pay yourself that six-figure salary that you deserve. And it's really a simple formula to determining this. It's knowing the cost of providing a service. And we really do recommend that this be broken down by service, because it's the only way to really ensure profitability across your business. So you need to know the cost of wages for providing that service, plus expenses like your supply cost, any direct other expenses, plus a percentage of fixed cost. And your fixed cost would be, those costs that you're going to pay for your business, regardless of how many pets come in the door. So if you have a building and are paying rent, that's it. Your utilities, even your marketing costs. And we'll get into this in more depth. And then you're going to add in a profit, because if you don't add in a profit, then you're just breaking even, which doesn't help you as a business owner provide value in your company or to pay yourself that salary you deserve. And all those things added up is what you need to charge the client. So we're going to show you an example. And this is an example for training services, and we're going to use different services throughout this webinar. But this is looking at a training group class that lasts 6 weeks. So you can just kind of get a feel of what this would look like to break it down. So wages is obviously your instructor pay. So if you're paying your instructor $25 per hour divided by 7 students that you can have in the class, multiplied by 6 lessons, means that is $21.43 for just paying your instructor. What you may forget is you have other team members that are also contributing and working to get clients registered for that class. So you may determine you've got 3 hours of administrative time. So that person costs you $12 an hour times 3 hours divided by the 6 lessons would mean for each class, that's $6. Then expenses would be, treats for your trainers. They're doing demos, so that's $3 per lesson. You may have clickers or handouts. That's another $5. And then we get down to figuring out this fixed cost percentage. So if the total fixed cost for your facility is $50,000 and group classes is 30% of that, it would be $15,000. And then you divide that by your 6-week course being 1% of the group classes you offer over the year, you would put in $150. And you add all that up for a total of a little over $200. That's your actual cost for providing the lesson, the group class. So if you're only charging $200 for the 6-week course, you're barely breaking even and you're not making a profit. So that means we need to be charging the client more. And so if you look at, okay, how much of a desired profit do I want? We think our kind of stake is your business should be earning at least a 20% profit. Now, that's kind of global for pet care services. It depends on your mix of services. And in fact, if you have a pretty high training component with certified trainers, you can get to a 50% profit. So you need to know what your profit goals are for any service you provide. And in this case, a 20% profit would be, or it would be 30% profit would be $60. So you'd want to charge at least $260.43. And I would probably round that up to $265, just to make it even. But you've got to decide for the trouble and stress of providing the service, what is your profit goal for doing it? And I know when I had my business, I set that at a minimum of 10%. If I didn't have at least a 10% profit from a service stream, I really needed to be either making changes so I got there or deciding whether I really wanted to continue to offer that service. So, Robin, I'm going to check in if we have any questions.
Yeah, we did have two. So Sarah asked, when figuring out the 30% for classes, do you do that by time or by revenue for comparison for each service?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you can do it either way. We're going to go into that in a little more detail. I would say primarily if you are like a training and pet sitting or dog walking company that doesn't have a facility, I would definitely allocate by revenue. If you have a facility, you might even change and allocate that by square footage. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but there are different ways to do it. The key is to allocate all of your costs out across your services. And when you kind of get into doing that exercise, you will figure out what makes sense for your business and your service mix.
Then the other question, well, Dennis said, are the slides going to be available to print? And I don't recall if we put the slides in the replay email.
I don't recall if we did either. So,
I can do that if you want to send them to me after.
Okay, so be patient.
We'll get them to you at some point, Dennis. Hopefully when the replay email goes out.
Yeah.
And then Gina said, this was back at the beginning of the presentation, but can you go over the hourly rate suggestions again? To make six figures, was it $48 an hour?
It is.
Okay.
$48 an hour to get to six figures.
All right. So that is good. So keep on going. Yeah.
All right. All right. So when you're pricing your services, these are kind of your steps. You got to know your cost, and including your own pay, whether that's part of, probably it's part of the fixed costs because you're contributing and helping all the different services that you offer. And then you need to determine a price point that covers your costs plus provides a profit. And there's a tricky little thing we do in the pet world is we set these prices and they sound great. And then we offer discounts. And we're going to kind of close out this section talking about why we think you need to be careful and really avoid offering too many discounts. So the steps in determining profitability by service is you want to make sure that you know the profit that's contributed by each revenue stream. So the information you need to have to do that, the first thing is you need to know revenue by service. And that often comes from your point of sale system. If you don't have that in your accounting software, get it from your point of sale system. You also need to know the volumes. So, and what you need to be able in counting volumes. So that's like, you know, how many pets did I take care of to get to that revenue level? And it's important how you count that. You want to count it the same way you charge. So if you're charging for a group class, then you're going to want to know how many people paid for that group class. So how many registrants did you have for a group class? If you charge daycare by the day, then you want to know how many dog daycare visits there were. If you do lodging by the night, then you want to see how many pet nights people stayed, or not people. You're not a hotel, you're a dog hotel. So how many pet nights did you have? So the key of this is getting volumes from your point of sale system that matches how you got that revenue. And I didn't mention at the beginning, but we are excited that following this webinar, we do have two of the point of sale software vendors that are common in our industry, Pet Exec and Loyalty, that are going to do some demos of how you can get this data from the point of sale system, because we know that's often the roadblock to being able to do this analysis. And so we're real excited to collaborate with them and to help you do this analysis. Then the second step is to identify the fixed cost and do an allocation. And as I mentioned earlier, You can do that just based on percentage of revenue. So if, training is 30% of your revenue and daycare is 40% and lodging is 30%, then you would just divide them up. Or if you're, a dog walker and, 40% is dog walks and 60% is overnights, that's how you can allocate your fixed costs. However, if you have a building, I really think allocating to space is important, because I know in my center, we did a lot of daycare and lodging, and then we also had a groom shop, but the groom shop was really small compared to the space in our building allocated to daycare and lodging. So it was more important for me to kind of know, was I benefiting from how I'm allocating space to these services? Because maybe I should decrease my daycare space and allocate more to grooming if it's more profitable for me. And if you do your fixed cost allocation that way, it helps you make some of those decisions. And then the third step is to assign variable cost to each revenue stream. And so for you guys that's in services, that's primarily going to be your direct labor cost. So if you don't know right now and divide your labor by service, that would be a step I would start to take. And if you're using a payroll service, you may be able to assign staff to certain departments, especially separating out labor from people that are caring for the pets or doing the service from those that are supporting it, like your management team, your supervisors, your front desk. Those become fixed costs and spread across all the departments, because likely they're supporting all the different services. So you're going to be able to...
Susan, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Brenda had asked, how do you calculate the fixed cost percentage? And I think, Brenda, that was before Susan just explained that. So hopefully that answered your question. But if you still have more questions, let us know. Melanie said, does QuickBooks Online have a POS system available? And I don't actually know if they do or not. Do you, Susan?
I don't think it's one you would want to use for pet care services. What most people end up doing, some of the POS systems for pet care, because you want to be able to enter vaccinations and, have that calendar feature to book reservations. And so that's why usually we do the pet care side of the business in a pet care POS, and then we pull the data over into QuickBooks to do the financial reporting. The problem that we see is a lot of times when that data gets pulled over, it's just one lump number that says sales, which doesn't give you those breakdowns that we say you need. That's why we pull a lot of that data out of the POS system. You may be able, when you put your payroll information in, to assign it to a class in QuickBooks, and then you could run your payroll data by class, which would be your different services, and could help you get information that way.
And then we've had a few questions about if this is being recorded, and it is being recorded. You will get a replay in a couple hours after the session ends. So you'll get that automatically, and the replay will be available for at least a week. Cynthia said, can you please repeat the Paul loyalty, etc.? So at the end of this session, what Susan had just mentioned a minute ago, at the end of this session, we're going to actually give you Zoom links where you can immediately go into a Zoom room. There's one for Pet Exec, and Paula Mosteller will be in there. And there's one for Paul Loyalty, and Garrett Tadlock will be in there. So if you have either of those systems, or if you're interested in either of those systems, you can immediately go into those Zoom rooms where they're going to talk specifically about how to pull some of this data for those programs. So we thought that would be a great way to sort of end this, because a lot of times, as Susan said, people understand the concepts, but then they're like, how do I get this information from my POS system? So those two organizations have offered to just be here and be available at the end, and we'll give those Zoom links out at the end of the presentation so you can jump in there. And then Yvette said, what if you're just launching and do not have a history of profit contributed by each revenue stream? Do you just use what you want the profit to be?
Yes, I would for the profit, I would set your goal, and then for the cost, I would use what you have in your business plan, what you anticipate your cost to be. So you should be doing your business plan expenses based on service. Now, not like your capital investment and kind of those one-time things that you don't put in. You don't include that in your fixed costs because that's different. But your fixed cost would be your ongoing rent, your utilities, advertising, marketing, your ongoing operating costs that your business will always have to pay. And so use your forecasted information for your business plan forecast to look at your rates.
And that's it.
Okay, well, we will keep going then. So if you are in business, you're going to need your profit and loss statements for the prior year to pull some of this information. And what I tell people to do, or if I'm helping clients do this, I just go through the operating expenses and I have it printed out or I have it in Excel and I look at each line item and say whether that's a fixed cost or a variable cost. And then I go back and determine if it's a variable cost, which service stream is it supporting. As we said, you need the number of pets serviced that aligns to how you charge for that service. And those numbers do need to come out of your point of sale system likely, or if you track and keep units as a separate KPI in your dashboard, which is a key performance indicator, you may have that data collected in another way. And then you need to know what are your advertised rates. And what we mean by advertised rates, if someone was to call you and say, how much do you charge for a group class? This is the number you give them. Or how much do you charge for 1 day of daycare? That's the number you give them. Because we need to be able to compare our calculated effective rate that I'm going to show you next against that advertised rate. So we're going to do an example to kind of show you how this all comes together to provide you information for making business decisions. And you can see we have a company total of revenue, and then we have that broken down between our key services of daycare, lodging, and grooming. So in total, it comes up under 550,000. And then we look at the total number of dogs serviced, and then we breaking those out between each service. And we've calculated what I just mentioned is an effective rate per dog, which means how much did we collect per dog? So company-wide, it was a little over $25. It sounds pretty good. But when you compare that to your advertised rate, or what we have here in the chart called published rate, so for daycare, that's $30, lodging is $35, and grooming $50, and compare the effective rates, you can see that discounts come into play. And the biggest discounts are in the daycare services. So this is good information to have because this does impact your profits and your pay. And so we're going to look a little deeper in what happens once we know this data and we start now looking at our costs that we talked about. So that's the second step, is pulling all those fixed costs together. So again, if you look at having company total and then dividing it out by service, we've got our property costs, we have utilities, the management and support staff, advertising and marketing, general supplies, and other. And in this case, we did allocate it out based on space. But you can see we came up with a total cost for the company and then for each of our services. And then we've divided again by the total number of dogs. And this is telling us the fixed cost per dog, which your fixed cost or what you're paying regardless of how many dogs come in the door. So if you look at that $12.92 overall for the company, it means almost the first $13 of every service is going to pay for your fixed cost. You haven't even taken care of a pet yet. And so you can see that these numbers do vary when you get and breaking them down from a low in grooming of $10.18 to a high in lodging at $18.34. So this is important to see, and we're going to show you here in a few minutes how that kind of adds up. Now, the third step is to allocate those variable costs we talked about. So we do the same exercise. We're looking at our direct labor and allocating that between daycare, lodging, and grooming. Then we're allocating the supplies, and then other direct costs, which could be your merchant fees. It would be good to kind of split that out by service. And again, we're dividing by the number of dogs and determining what is our variable cost per dog. So this would be the cost to actually provide the services, which company-wide is a little over $11. So when we look at this in a chart and we bring that fixed cost per dog in by the company and then for each service, and then the variable cost, we get the average total cost per dog. And then we compare that to that effective rate, which is what we're actually getting. And we come down to company-wide, we're making a profit of $1.40 per dog, which is nice. It's a profit, but how many of you feel like only getting $1.40 per dog for all the work you put in really makes it worth it? Probably not many of you. And then if you look at daycare, we're actually making a penny. So you're basically breaking even providing daycare. And trust me, Robin and I know how hard it is to provide safe daycare services, and it's a lot of work. We would say that you need to be raising your rates so that you're more profitable. In grooming, you're not making much. So really, in this example, lodging is really carrying most of the business and providing most of the profits. And we kind of knew this. We've done this with enough people in our community. And this was why when the pandemic hit, we were really concerned when lodging went down that businesses were going to suffer because one of their most profitable services basically went away for close to a year. So, once you have this information, you can determine, can your rates go up or can you reduce expenses? That's the only way you're going to increase your profit is by doing one of those two steps. So before we go on, was there any questions on any of these examples, Robin?
Nope, you're good so far.
Well, that's a surprise and good. Happy. All right. So yeah, what is your action plan now that you have this? So we would want you to calculate that effective rate so that you know what you're getting, because for most services, it's not going to be the published rate. Determine your fixed cost per dog, at least for your key services. You may not have to do this for every service you offer, but I would want to do it for services that would comprise 70 to 80% of my revenue. Those would be the ones that are your key services, probably contributing 20% or more of your total revenue. Then you also want to determine your variable cost per dog. Being able to break that down by service is so important so that you know and can calculate which services are the most profitable and which ones aren't, so that you can decide how to take action, because every revenue stream should contribute to profits, or you need to know your strategy for offering it. If you're happy with break even with a service because it feeds and gets you clients and other services, you can make that decision as a business owner, but you probably will want those other services to be highly profitable to make up for providing a break even service. Occasionally, when you roll out something new, it might be what we would call a loss leader, but that should probably be short term if you're going to keep that as part of your service mix. So we're going to close this session talking about the impact of discounts, because as I said earlier, in the pet industry, one thing we know is we offer a lot of discounts because it's just something the industry has done. There's multi-pet discounts. There may be what I call kind of demographic community discounts for maybe military, first responders, maybe senior citizens. The other place that discounts hide are in packages, offering like daycare day packages, 5-day, 10-day, 20-day packages. And those are sometimes hidden discounts because I think we don't realize how much that brings down the profit of these services. And we said you could increase rates, but another way to contribute to your profit is to reduce the amount of your discounts. So an exercise I would have you do as a business owner would be list all the discounts you're offering and put why you're offering that discount, how it benefits your business. What is the business reason for providing the discount? Not necessarily the client reason, because your clients are very happy you're providing these discounts. What you want to make sure is that they are contributing to your business goals, is either getting in more dogs, etc. And that's where I have an issue sometimes with daycare day packages. In theory, I would think if I was offering a 10-day package, it's because I want a client to come more frequently and use 10 days. If you don't have an expiration on your daycare packages, then why are you offering a discount to buy a 10-pack when they have 6 months or a year to use it? They're not going to necessarily be in your business more frequently. You're really just being nice and providing a convenience and a cheaper rate to someone. So really looking at your discounts and even considering your package expirations to be shorter based on the number of days in the package to align with how frequently they should come in to benefit your business and to get value back for that. And hopefully I'll convince you when I show you these charts about the impact of discounts. We showed that in this example, daycare was providing a 28% discount. So we talked about reducing discounts is a way to make more money. So let's say we reduced the packages that we offered so that in total we got that down to a 20% discount. That would increase your daycare revenue to $360,000 or $35,000 per year. There you go. You just found a raise for yourself for $35,000 just by dropping your daycare package discounts, multi-pet discounts from 28 to 20%. And the thing I love about really understanding your pricing is there's no expenses related to doing this. So all of that is pure profit. It goes directly to the bottom line or your pay or money that you can pay your team. So if we reduce discounts down to 10%, which is the amount Robin and I recommend, you would increase your daycare revenue to $395,000 for that year or $70,000 per year. So how many of you, if you had an extra $70,000, would get you to that 6-figure payroll place for yourself? So the bottom line is if you decrease your discounts, you increase your profits. So in this example, just doing a reduction of discounts, you could add $35,000 to $70,000 directly to your bottom line or your pocket. All right. So pricing your services, you really do have to know your costs, including your own pay, and build that in and determine the price point that covers costs plus profit, and then really be aware of the discounts you're offering and how they benefit your business. So if you want help pulling some of this data together, we do have a tool we call Pet Profits, which the little spreadsheet examples kind of came from that template. It's a PDF that walks you through using an Excel template. And we actually have 3 different templates now. We have one for pet businesses that have a facility and want to allocate fixed costs based on square footage. And then we have templates for dog trainers, and then separate one for pet sitters that would be allocating fixed costs based on revenue. So they're done for you. You just plug and play your numbers in, and that's available in our store. and it's less than $40. So that tool could help you do these calculations. And I can answer any other questions before we go to our Zoom rooms, Robin.
Right now, I just did put a link for Pet Profits in there. It is, again, less than $40, but it gives you all those spreadsheets that Susan talked about. We had a couple people that were just saying they stopped multi-pet discounts because people started taking advantage. And then Kelly said, and we've said this a lot as well, so I'll just repeat it, but Kelly said she learned that multiple pets is not her fault. The pet owner, decided they wanted multiple pets, so why should we give them a discount? And we say that a lot of times as well. If you have more than one child, you don't get a discount at the dentist, although it would be great if you did, but unfortunately we don't. So that is definitely true. Camilla asked if Pet Profits is in launch formula, and I don't think it is because the forecasting tool's in there, right, Susan?
That is right. Yes, the forecasting tool. Yeah.
So, Carmela, there is a forecasting tool that is what most people use for launching their business because they don't have the numbers they need. And Pet Profits is really more geared towards having the numbers and doing the data analysis.
But the forecasting tool does set up the cost by service. And so you would have your variable cost and revenue there. All you would have to do would be an allocation from the operating spreadsheet to the services. So the forecasting tool will help you get to the same data.
Okay. And Courtney said, love Pet Profits, such a great deal. So thank you, Courtney. Christine said, we get asked quite often if we offer discounts for vet hospital employees that refer business to us. Do you have any thoughts on that? And what another person, so kind of in the same category, another person said, what discounts do make sense?
Yeah, I would, if you want to give discounts to people that refer business to you, I think that's one that could make sense, but I would be tracking how many referrals you're getting so that you know that you're getting value back from those discounts. And I would let them know that, it could be a good relationship because if you know your marketing costs per new client, which is, I know, a big hot button of yours, Robin, the discount you give may be less than your marketing cost, but you probably should know both of those, wouldn't you think, Robin, to make
right.
that decision?
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole thing is whatever discounts you're doing, understand why you're doing it, and then make a decision based on that to see if it's working. Some of the discounts that folks are talking about, like police, fire, military, new puppy discounts, vet discounts, some of those, like police, fire, military, first responders, nurses, hospitals, whatever, those just might be aligned with your brand. And so you're doing it because it aligns with your brand. And there's nothing wrong with that. What we would say, though, is all of your discounts added up should be less than 10%. So if you're going to, maybe you give a higher percent to first responders, but then you need to give a lower percent to other things. Or maybe you just do 10% for those first responders. Things like veterinarians or referrals, it makes sense if your goal is that they are now going to refer you more. But like Susan said, you want to track that. Is that actually working? Because if it's not, then there's no reason to give the discount. So it's really a matter of seeing what makes the most sense. I will tell you that we did rescue discounts for a long, long time. But then when I looked at my client base at this point, it was about 17 years ago, 95% of my client base was dogs from rescues and shelters. So it was basically like I didn't have a discount. I had lower rates because pretty much everybody was in that category. So we stopped offering those discounts because it didn't make sense for us anymore. So it just really depends on that. New puppy discounts. We did a puppy class that was free. It was a loss leader because I tracked the data and I knew that 80% of the puppies that we got into our little free puppy thing would convert into paying clients. So as a marketing, that made a total ton of sense for me. But if those clients were just getting something free and not converting to being paid clients, I probably would not have continued to do that. So it really is just all about making sure that your discounts make sense, that there's something beneficial for you in it, and that it's ideally less than 10%. So now like a whole bunch of questions came in while I was while I was talking. So let me go see real quick. When I worked this out with your budget tool, I found that cancellations for dog walks, pet sits showed up as discounts. I give them a credit if they cancel in a timely manner, but it was hard on the bottom line. What would you suggest?
Yeah, I would have a cancellation policy of, a certain time that you may give them a credit, but if you can't fill the spot, then I wouldn't be giving them the credit. I would charge them because, we need to start thinking about our businesses as having like inventory that will spoil, almost like an airline. Once that airplane takes off, they can no longer sell the seat. The same thing is true for your dog walks and pet sits. Once that day is done, you can't sell those spots. So if you're giving up revenue because people cancel and you can't fill it, then I wouldn't allow that. I would change my cancellation policy.
And then Courtney mentioned the real key is tracking, which very few people do. And that's true for all of this. For the discounts, really, I will tell you, if you've never tracked what your discounts are, just do that as an exercise for a few months. I can tell you, we have never worked with someone who tracked their discounts and after 3 months was not convinced they should change their discounts. Because when you realize that tracking those discounts, when you get that dollar amount and it's in the thousands, you quickly say, that's just money basically that I'm paying out of my pocket for them to use my services. And so if, reality is the secret here. So tracking some of this is really important and will help you to clarify what you might want to do moving forward. So you definitely want to look at that. Charlotte said, what about if they overbook their days and pick up early? I've had a lot of this lately.
Yeah, I would consider that as part of my cancellation policy as well. That's what we did, that if people picked up early and it reduced the number of nights, especially in peak periods when I've turned other clients away because I was full, that was still part of cancellation and had to be charged. But again, you've got to make that in your policy and communicate it.
And then Antoinette said, how do you stop a discount with your clients? And Garrett had answered saying you can stop discounts by creating a story as to why. Depending on the discount type, we would offer a few months to phase it out and offer to buy in at the current rate or something like that. So I think those are all good ideas in terms of changing or stopping a discount. Do you have any other suggestions on that, Susan?
No, I just wouldn't make it a huge deal about it. I would do it as part of probably an overall rate adjustment and just say we've, analyzed our business, and as of this date, these are our new rates. And if that means the package discount is different, I wouldn't be pointing out that I've taken it from 20% to 10%. I would just tell them what the new charge is.
Yeah, and I will say we just had a discussion on this in our, we do have a Facebook page or Facebook group called Grow Your Pet Care Business. And I'm putting a link in the comments if you want to join that. But we did recently have a discussion on that. And someone actually Jean Chesterman shared her poster that she put up when she was changing her rates. And it was a really good sample. And she was willing to, share that and let people see what she did. But it's exactly what Susan said. You don't make a big deal out of the fact that you're changing rates, but you do, give them a little bit of notice and just start changing them. And I always say, if you have, one or two people there's always that one or two people that you say, I don't want to increase the prices for that one or two people, then don't go talk to them and tell them you're grandfathering them in. But even for those special clients that you might want to help, or maybe they were your very first client, so you want to be loyal to them or whatever, I would still give them a deadline for when their rates are going to increase. So I wouldn't say to them, okay, we're raising our rates next month, but you're never going to pay more than now. I mean, I would maybe say we're going to let you stay at your current rate for 2 more months or whatever. So don't let the fact that, there might be somebody you want to treat differently stop you from raising your prices overall. Yeah. So Paula said, don't be afraid to charge what you're worth. And that's absolutely. And then Dana said, I've been in business a little over a year, officially opened before COVID. For newer businesses, is your cost per dog the same calculation?
Yes. And unfortunately, during COVID, when you guys do this math, it may look very scary, because that was the big problem that every business had during COVID, that you were not operating anywhere near full capacity. So your fixed costs per dog are going to look really high. But I would still do the calculation, and then I would start looking at it as your volume's picking up. And one thing I haven't mentioned is I really recommend that all pet businesses increase some of their rates every year. You don't have to increase every rate, but you do need to get into the habit of raising rates. And we have a great Facebook Live on that you can find in our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we just recently did that. Cynthia said, so all the discounts need to equal 10%, or each discount should not be over 10%. And I would say if you add them all together, they shouldn't be over 10% for your business.
Correct. And the reason we say that is that we know for most pet businesses, just your payroll costs run probably at least 40%. And that's for people that are doing really good at managing payroll, to some 60%. Then you need to also pay for all those fixed costs, which are often 20 to 30%, which means you only have a 10% profit. And if you're giving 10% away, more than 10% away in discounts, there's just not the margins there to give that much.
So Michaela said, and I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to answer this question by asking a question for a second and let you guys comment. So the question is, when a family of 2 dogs board together, does it make sense to give a discount to the second dog? So my question that I would like all of you who have been doing dog daycare or lodging to answer is, when a family has more than 1 dog, is it more work or less work or the same amount of work to care for those dogs? So I'm just going to let people answer. And while we're waiting,
Robin.
And Kelly said, your skill demands people respect your art or skill. You'll get a noticeable better clientele, which I do also agree with, that if you are charging what you're worth, you are going to get the clients that will pay that. So a lot of people think that they won't. All right. So nobody's answering my question. Okay, here we go. So Penny says same, more work in caps. Sarah says more work. Ryan said more work in cap. Crystal says often more work. So we stopped off. Diana said we stopped offering a multiple dog discount because we have the same amount of work per dog, more work. I'm going to have to change my policy. That's what Cynthia said. If they sleep together, they do take up less space, but in reality, probably the same amount of work. So this is a really controversial one. For years and years and years, this is common in our industry to charge less for the second dog. But as someone said earlier, it is not your choice for them to get 2 dogs or 3 dogs or 4 dogs. And the reality is, generally speaking, it's at the very minimum, it's the same amount of work. But oftentimes, even if those dogs are boarding in the same lodging enclosure, and then you're thinking, well, it's okay because there's 2 dogs in that enclosure, you still have to take them out you still need the staff to take them out. And oftentimes you need to separate them to feed them. So now you're actually creating more work because you have to, at feeding time, you have to move them. So we don't recommend multiple dog discounts. And I don't think it's a problem to charge the same amount for 2 dogs. I mean, each dog paying the same amount. I don't know, Susan, if you have any thoughts on that. I know this is a really controversial one in our industry, though.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. In fact, when I didn't have traditional lodging at first in my pet business, and so when I was adding it, I went and talked to others in the community that were offering it, and everyone I talked to said, because at that time it was common to give a 50% discount for the second pet, and every person said don't do it. So I was blessed by being mentored by other wise business owners, and it is the work. And I am happy to say that I do think the industry is moving away from that.
And I think somebody said, there's like a ton of comments that came in there all at once, so I can't keep up with all of them. But somebody did say it's more work, but also the second dog is taking up a full paying dog spot, which is another point, especially on those peak seasons where you're full anyway. Right. So I think this multi-dog discounts unless you really get it to work out to where you're working less and your payroll is less and your expenses are less, this is one that totally benefits the owner, 100%, absolutely. And doesn't necessarily benefit the business at all, which is why we would really say, why are you offering it? If you don't think you can fill your spaces, then I would look at increasing and improving your marketing before I would spend money on marketing before I would say, let's offer a discount to get those dogs in. So, and if you are going to do that, I have seen some people do it as a special time offer, not during peak season, but during slow seasons to get new clients in. So maybe it's a new client benefit for one time where the first day, maybe the dog is 50% off. And then after that, it goes back to regular pricing. And if that's helping you to generate new clients, it might make sense. But again, you have to go back to looking at what's the purpose of why you're doing it, other than it's really nice to the pet parent. Nancy also said the dynamic of two family dogs interacting in a group setting can be problematic, which is also true. Garrett said, and Garrett is with Paw Loyalty, in our system, we see a large majority of facilities that give a multi-pet discount when sharing a room, but just because it's done doesn't make it right. And they do the multi, and I know Paula feels the same way. Multi-dog discounts have a huge impact on your average revenue per pet per night, which is really one of the key numbers you should know and see how that is affected, because it's going to lower that profit that you get in your pocket. So, all right. I think that was all of the questions. I just started a big controversy there, but that was a great question because it comes up all the time and there's really strong opinions on both sides of it. But we would say if it's not helping your business, then there's no reason to do it.
But love the discussion, and I'm just super excited. We ready to go to the Zoom room?
I think so. If you want to explain all that, and I will put the links in here.
Okay. So Robin is going to put a link to, you get to choose whether you're going to go to the Paw Loyalty room with Garrett and his team, or to the Pet Exec room with Paula and her team. And what they're going to do is actually do some demos of how to pull data from their systems to where you can know maybe your discounts, or to pull the units so that you can do some analysis, how to pull the revenue by service, and just answer how you can actually get this information out of their system. So we're super excited and appreciate that they're taking the time to do that. So I don't have the chat up. So
yeah, and I would stay live for a few minutes, Susan, so they don't lose this information. And can you do that and go join the Zoom room at the same time? I think you can.
I think I can.
We're going to multitask for a second. So we'll keep the webinar page up for about 5 minutes, but everyone right now, if you have some other system and you don't want to see Paw Loyalty or Pet Exec, then we appreciate you joining us today and you are done. But if you have either of those two systems, or if you want to learn about either of those two systems, go ahead and click on the link that's in that chat, and you'll see a meeting ID and you'll see a passcode. It's all kind of merged together because that's how the chat box works. But the passcode for Pet Exec is just the word Pet Exec, and the passcode for Paw Loyalty is just the word Paw Loyalty. But you can jump over there and they're going to just talk about how to pull data from their systems and answer any questions you have. And hopefully that will help you as well. So we will see you over there.